Well, it's what, about 4 after? I think I haven't seen anybody else pop in, so I think we're good to get started. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming on what at least here is a dreary Monday morning. I am Steve Barclay from Canadian Assistive Technologies, and we are here today to talk about some of the solutions from Pneuma Solutions, including Scribe, a document remediation system, Scribe for Meetings for making presentations on online meetings accessible, and REM, a unique support tool for supporting people who are blind and visually impaired, or having blind and visually impaired people support people, both for one-to-one as well as to administer networks. I should mention that this meeting is being scribed right now. And what that means is that there is an accessible version of the PowerPoint slides that are being presented right now. There is a link in chat. There's actually 2 links in chat, so I'm going to drop in the link to the correct link. And if you follow that link, you should be able to follow along with the meetings and get all of the information that's being presented on the PowerPoint slides. So seeing as we're using Scribe for Meetings, I think it's probably best that we start this presentation by talking about Scribe for Meetings and exactly what it does. And it does exactly what you are seeing here if you're on the accessible version of it. If you're just following along in the PowerPoint, you're not going to see any real difference from what you're normally used to. But if you were a screen reader user who was trying to access the information on these PowerPoint slides through Zoom, basically what you would get presented with by a screen reader would be a big blank page. There's no actual readable text when you're sharing a PowerPoint. So Scribe allows you to take your presentation, upload it through Scribe, and then Scribe will create a accessible HTML version of that, which is presented on a web page. And you can use your screen reader to read those slides. And if you're not using a screen reader, there's actually built-in speech that you can use as well. So for somebody who had a print-related disability that was unrelated to vision, they would be able to access that information as well. So this is my big lead-in slide whenever I'm doing a Scribe for Meetings presentation. It announces that this is the most impressive PowerPoint in the world, and hopefully everybody has access to that information now, either visually or through the described version of it. But we're going to talk about how we can set a meeting up for Scribe for Meetings. So the very first step that you're going to go to is you are going to go to the Scribe for Meetings webpage. And on the Scribe for Meetings webpage, it's going to ask you to put in the invite link to either a Zoom or a Teams meeting. So this is the link that you would normally join your meeting through. Once you have put in that invite link, it's going to take you to the next page, and it's going to generally tell you that this event isn't yet registered for Scribe for Meetings. And it's going to tell you to click here if you want to register this event on behalf of the host, if you're not the host yourself, or click here if you are the host of the event. So obviously I went in as the host of the event, and it says, email me when the event is available on Scribe for Meetings. And it says below is a sample that you can send to the host of the event to ask them to use Scribe for Meetings, along with a link that will make it easy for them to get started. It is possible to use Scribe for Meetings just for individual meetings if you want to. There's a straight charge for individual meetings if you want to, or it can be bought as a subscription service, which you can use over and over again, either individually or through your organization. So once you click on you are the host of this event, you get presented with a login page. You put in your email address, and you hit next, and then it is going to go and it's going to send you an email. And or it'll give you a message saying, please check your email for a link. So you go to your email after that, and you'll find a lovely email, much like this one, that says, thank you for your interest in Scribe for Meetings. Click here to verify your email address and begin using Scribe for Meetings. This is basically checking to make sure that you have the rights to use Scribe for Meetings. And if indeed you do, when you click on that link, it's going to bop you over into the new event page. So on the new event page, it asks you to give your meeting a title, which I've done, called it the Solutions of Pneuma Solutions, which you would see at the top of the tab on the accessible version if you're looking at it through a browser. It asks you to select your PowerPoint or PDF slide deck. There's a note down there that says PDF support is currently in beta. Mike, maybe you can answer how's it going as far as the beta for PDFs?
Everything's in beta.
Everything's in beta. Okay, so we'll leave it there. It comes warts and all when you're using PDF, but we're using PowerPoint right now, which is pretty solid here. So there's a couple of options below there in step 3, where it's asking, okay, what do you want to do for the language? So I've left it for auto detect the languages, because on a couple of the slides I have different languages. There's a checkbox that says add image descriptions, and that's if you don't have images, alt tags on your images in your PowerPoint. Scribe for Meetings will actually try and look at your image and figure out exactly what is in your image. So we'll have an example of that coming up as well. And then the last checkbox on there is allow attendees to download accessible versions of the slide, which I have allowed on our meeting. And you can, if you like, pull down the accessible slides from this meeting when we're all done, or at any point during the meeting for that matter. So once you get past that step, it takes your slide deck and it starts going through your slide deck, pulling out the text of your slides, OCRing where you don't have text, or if you have text within an image, and it will go and put descriptions together for any of the images that you have not alt tagged. And it creates a link for the accessible version of it that you can, as I did, put into the chat, or you could email to your participants in advance of the meetings if you wanted to do that. And then there's also a link to attend the meeting with Scribe for Meetings, which will take you straight to the accessible page for the meeting itself. Now, if you're on the accessible version, on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see some controls. And depending on what you've done with those controls, you may see a couple of different iterations of it. The most basic one is a pause, a speaker, and because I've allowed downloading of slides, the link to download slides. If you hit the little speaker button, it will read the slide to you. And of course, you've got the ability to play and pause as well. Now, because we've gone through a few slides, there's also fast forward and rewind controls on the toolbar as well. For somebody who's attending the accessible version, they might need a little bit more time to go through the slides, to get the text off of the slides and to get a full understanding of what's being presented there. So they actually have the ability to go back in time on the presentation and look at slides that have been presented previously. You can't go past the slide that the presenter has gotten to, but you can always rewind it and then go back to catch up to where the presentation is. If you hit the download slides button, it will give you a web page which will ask you what format you want those slides downloaded in. So you can download them as a downloadable web page. You can download them as EPUB, audio, Microsoft Word, PDF, Braille, DAISY, or Mobi. So you just select whichever one you want and you hit the prepare download button and it will prepare it and it will let you download it. Easy peasy. And just a couple of different sample slides here for people who are following along on the accessible version with a screen reader. This is an example of a table. This table has been presented in a proper table format so that you can follow along with your table reading commands using your screen reader. So you'd be able to read headers, you'd be able to read row titles, and read the information in context, even though this is being in a table format. The next one is just another example of an image that has been pulled up. And one of the things I found most interesting about this particular image is that it was able to pull text out of this image, even though the text was over top of graphics. So it does a really, really good job of pulling the different text information out of a graphic and presenting it to the participant. And then this slide, which talks about learning disabilities in Canada, I left no alt tag on this image, so you can actually go and you can read what alt tag it assigned to it. So this is a picture of a Canadian flag flying over what looks like a provincial park, maybe Banff or Jasper or something. I'm not sure, but the bot has basically gone in, looked at this, and has decided that this is a flag on a flagpole, which is correct. And this is the sort of thing that you can kind of expect if you're leaving the alt tagging to the software itself. It's going to make its best attempt at what it sees and give you a description. It may not be entirely what you want it to say, but if you really, really want it to say what you want it to say, you should probably put in an alt tag. And then language support. Scribe supports a whole bunch of different languages, including French, English, German, Italian, and Spanish. And these are just different phrases in different languages. Now, if you're reading this with a screen reader, this is going to be dependent on the languages that you've actually installed on your screen reader, and the language switching capabilities of your screen reader itself. If you're using the built-in speech, it will just automatically switch languages on the fly using the built-in speech. So you can play with that either way. If you want to poke around at it, I can leave that up for just a minute. But this is really handy for, particularly in our Canadian context, where we'll oftentimes have both French and English content within a presentation.
If I could just insert a quick point here, Steve, you mentioned the downloadable web page format earlier, and that format, that self-contained downloadable web page includes the speech output and rewind and fast forward capabilities, same as when you're viewing the slides live.
Good point. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on. So Scribe for meetings, because everybody always asks what the price is. A single meeting pass, if you were to just want to use it for a single meeting, it's 14 bucks Canadian to make your meeting accessible to everybody. An annual individual license for a single presenter, $345 Canadian or $35 a month. And an organizational license, so an entire organization can use Scribe whenever they want to, 6,900 Canadian or $690 a month. So does anybody have any questions about Scribe for meetings? I know I see a lot of names here that have already been on presentations about Scribe for meetings before, but there's also some folks that have not. Jamel, go ahead.
How does this compare to, sorry, I can't find the raise hand button on my phone.
Okay.
How does this compare to something like Slido?
I'm not familiar with Slido at all. Mike, Matt, are either of you familiar with that product?
I've never heard of Slido. I'm so sorry.
Me neither. Can you just give us a quick overview of what it is?
It's a decking tool that's used in government, and it was used by an accessibility company that I worked for in the private sector before going into accessibility in government. And it's I didn't really have to present with it, so I didn't investigate it too much. But I know that I'm sure that it won't give me a BRF thing. I don't think it will. I don't think it will give me BRFs or Mobies or. I'm not sure if it would do like the audio reading if that was a need. But I know it would do the basics of letting somebody have access to slides with a screen reader.
I think the challenge that one of the biggest challenges that we alleviate is the level of accessibility the presenter needs to know when creating the document. B, the way of getting that document in a reasonable time to the participants, and then to be able to synchronize that in time to the actual presentation. There is no interaction necessary by the presenter when using Scribe for meetings in a meeting. It's simply those who need it can tune in. Those who don't, it is in no way an interruption. It doesn't do anything with the exception of letting the bot into the room and the previous, the uploading of the slides at the beginning. The presenter has absolutely nothing else to do to make a meeting accessible with Scribe for meetings. That I think those are the biggest takeaways for what we do and kind of what we bullet point ourselves on. I mean, I'm sure there are many solutions out there that have tried to solve this problem, because it's a very serious problem of people with a print disability coming into a meeting and not having any idea with what they're dealing with, being given a slide deck that may or may not be accessible, and then expected to either lead a team such as myself and others that are visually impaired, or participate in a meaningful conversation while trying to learn the PDF, the slide deck, and figure out where the presenter is in that slide deck. So, there are a number of challenges that we fix, but sure, there are other solutions out there. But I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Slido.
So to elaborate a little bit on what Mike said, so all the presenter has to do is upload their slide deck or decks to the Scribe for Meetings cloud service, and then let the bot into the meeting. And the bot is literally watching what the presenter is showing on the screen. And it can, like I said, it can be multiple slide decks. You could have handoff between multiple presenters, and the once the process gets going, the presenters don't have to do anything. And a presenter could be presenting their slide deck from their iPad or Chromebook or whatever, because the bot just needs to be able to watch what's happening on the screen and sync it up with the converted slide deck.
Hope that helps.
Jamal, you've had your hand up for a little bit there.
Hi there, this is Awais Patel. I'm also the friend of Jamal, and we're joining from the same device as we're in the same room. My question for you is, the experience of using Scribe, how is that experience different compared to when somebody sends me a PowerPoint? I can open it on my iPhone with my Braille display connected, whether it is in Microsoft PowerPoint or Google Slides, and read through the PowerPoint without no problem. How will Scribe enhance that experience if I already have those skills and capabilities?
Great
Can I take that
question.
one?
Great question. And Matt
We all
can
want
take
to take that one.
Yeah, like-
Go ahead.
So let me share a personal anecdote of a presentation that I attended before Scribe for Meetings, where I did exactly what you said. They gave me the PowerPoint file like 5 minutes before the day-long training session began, and I read it on my computer. And as part of that session, one of the training exercises was actually ruined by the fact that I had access to the whole slide at once, because it was one of those slides that where that is revealed piece by piece as the presenter advances. And because I had access to the whole slide at once, I kind of missed the point of the exercise, which was for I guess for us to guess whatever it was and then have the answer revealed. With Scribe for Meetings, you are synchronized in real time with this whichever slide or subset of a slide the presenter is showing on their screen. And we do specifically handle those sort of incrementally revealed slides. So we got feedback.
Yep, that's a very worry noise. Yeah, one thing I would add to that as well, when it comes to things like text that's embedded in graphics, that's a pretty prime example. Like in this presentation, I did a bunch of screenshots of stuff that were on the various web pages for Scribe. None of that had any text associated with it by default. When I put it through Scribe OCR'd all that text and brought up its best recognition of that, and presented that on the accessible version. If I'd handed you this slide deck, those graphics would have been just big blank graphics to you. You wouldn't have had access to any of the text on them.
Was there text in the graphics?
Yes, there was text in the graphics.
Well, I'll tell you something. If you're using an iPhone with a Braille display, what you can do is take a screenshot of that, and now with other abilities that Apple has added to accessibility features, you can now detect text and select that text and work with it depending on what you need. It's called live text.
Yep. And for somebody like you who's a proficient user of that technology, that might not be such a big deal. But for somebody who maybe isn't as advanced as you are, that is a big deal. And Scribe just makes it dead simple for them.
Thank you.
Kevin, I believe you were next up. Kevin Walsh.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Great. No, I think this is amazing, and I just wanted to say about Slido. I'm from Shared Services Canada, and we actually used it in one of our general meetings, and the feedback later on from everybody, point of accessibility wise, was not very great. That's all that. I don't want to trash any product or anything like that, but from what I've heard, it could be a lot better. And what you're showing here with Scribe, I find pretty impressive. I would like to actually hear from my colleague Eric, who's in the meeting as well, who is more aware of some of these technologies, because I'm more of a computer geek, and I install this stuff and I troubleshoot this stuff and help people with it, but I don't really use this technology myself, and I'm not an accessibility expert. I'm learning about it. Like 5 years ago, I was completely ignorant of about making websites or programs accessible. I just made an ordinary Word document, didn't bother with titles or headings, or it never even crossed my mind that said, well, how's a blind person going to read it? I don't know. It's not my problem. It's what was kind of my attitude. And I've learned so much in the last 5 years about accessibility. I think what you're doing is great. And if it can help it, like, exact blank images where it puts in the alt text automatically, even if it's not completely accurate, you can go back and edit it. It was up to you to, as you said, it's up to you to put in the alt text. If you don't like it, you should have put it in first. But I think it's great. I'm very interested in and my question is, was the price, like for an organization, was it six for a year? Is it 6,900? Did I see that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and keep up the great work.
Thank
By the
you.
way, stick around because the moment for the geeks is coming when we talk about RIM. That's gonna be
Alright.
that's totally your jam, buddy. That's totally your
Alright.
jam.
I'll be here. All right, thanks a lot.
All righty. Patricia, you've got your hand up.
Hello, Patricia.
You're muted though, Patricia. You still with us, Patricia?
Nope.
All right. Well, we'll circle back to Patricia here. Any more questions before we move on? No? Okay. So next up, we are going to talk about Scribe, which is on-demand digital automated document remediation, which I'm not going to even try and say 10 times fast. Scribe, which you can get to at scribeit.io, is a system where you can have pretty much immediate access to a remediated document if you have an inaccessible document. So the very first thing that scribeit.io is going to ask you to do is put in your email address, same as you had to do for Scribe for Meetings. And once you're logged in, it will present you with a page letting you choose a file or to choose a URL link to a file. And there is a big button that says preview. So you select your file or your link, you hit preview, and it's going to go and it's going to give you a sample of the document. Once you have looked at your sample, I'm just including on this slide the tail end of my sample document, which was a contract from another supplier. You get the option to remediate that full document. So you have the options of read in browser, PDF, audio, Braille, downloadable web page, EPUB, Microsoft Word, DAISY, and Mobi. You can hit the convert button and it will go and it will convert that entire document. And depending on the size of that document, within seconds to minutes, you will have a accessible version of that document. Now, we all know that documents that are done through automated processes oftentimes will have errors or not have an ideal outcome. So there is a link down below there that also says by human remediation. You can refer that document to a human remediator if you want. Now, one of the things that I run into on a regular basis, particularly in post-secondary, is I run into students who have gone into a program where they don't have accessible documentation for the particular program that they're running into. And typically speaking, the college or university will send that textbook or what have you off to a remediator, and within a mere few months they will have a remediated document back. Well, in those few months when the student didn't have that textbook, they've just fallen behind, and it can be a huge issue, particularly in post-secondary. So although you might not have a perfect document when you go through the basic remediation process, what you have is some document, and maybe it's 90% accurate, but that's 90% more than you had starting out. And with the human remediation option, you can get that document to a better place in a much quicker time because they're starting work from a document that's already partially remediated. So if you do go and you select human remediation, Scribe's human remediation service costs $10 a page. I'm not sure what people, that I should mention that's in US dollars, so that's about 14 bucks a page in Canadian dollars these days. And for the document that that I had uploaded, which was just a one-page document. It says that we estimate the remediation will be completed in 3 business days, not including weekends from the time of purchase. That obviously would take longer for a bigger document, but you can hit that buy now button and you can get a human remediated document straight through the system. There's different price structures depending on how the system is being used, but typically you're looking at a Canadian cost per page for the automated remediation of about 13 cents a page, Canadian again. You can get things like a campus site license, which will allow you 50,000 pages for about $6,500, 100,000 pages for about $1,300 or $13,000, I should say. There is an initial setup fee for an organization to get the login systems set up, which is about $1,300 for the first time that it's set up. And then there's overage charges if you go over your number of pages as well. And then, of course, there is the human remediation option as well. So within organizations, you can have this set up so that you can delegate people responsible for certain aspects of it. So for example, you might not want everybody in an organization to be able to pitch out the human remediation option. You might say, okay, well, hold on, Tony in shipping doesn't necessarily need to convert the entire Harry Potter series. Maybe we have somebody in charge who can say, sorry Tony, no. But so-and-so's request for human remediation is one that we're going to allow, so you can have gatekeepers on certain aspects of this as well. Now, I've not been involved in any of the big setups for these, but Mike, of course, and Matt, of course, have. So I'm going to kind of kick it over to those guys to talk a little bit more about organizational structure for these services.
Well, I think that obviously you've done a great job of explaining how the product works, and some of the packaging I think is really interesting that we're doing, and we're always open to any other remediation stuff that we may not have kind of gotten on our radar. The one thing I want to clear up are two very important things that the technology cannot do. The technology cannot remediate forms at this time. In other words, we can't make inaccessible forms accessible. And the technology also does not do well with math type things like charts and graphs and things of that nature. Those are limitations of OCR and of AI, and companies that are much, much bigger than Pneuma are working on those. Thank God that is a small percentage, a very important percentage, but a small percentage of what the potential user of Scribe for Documents can do. We do text, we do tables, we mark up things in lists and H1s and H2s and all the fancy stuff that you need for accessible documents. And we do that whether the document is a graphic or whether the document is just straight up text, and with some markup, and with some kind of marking up that. Anyway, the ability for us to do large amounts of documents at one time is one of the things that makes Scribe really important. Steve was talking about a few minutes ago about this kid doing the Harry Potter book. Well, that of course is not necessarily a way you want someone using Scribe credits if they're just using them for school. However, let's say you do have a 600-page document from your organization that is a legacy document. It needs to be made accessible, but not because it's so hugely important that we need to go out and spend $17 or $18 a page on it. We just need access to it. And right now, for example, Scribe's at about 96% accuracy. And as time goes by, it's going to become more and more accurate because that's just the way that the technology is heading. What we can do is we can scribe documents for you in all of our different formats for about $1 a page or whatever the Canadian equivalent is, and give you a fully accessible copy. And we come back and we refresh that as the technology gets better. And even if you had to refresh that document and over the next couple of years, and it costs you $1.50, $2 per page, you're still saving a heck of a lot of money on this document remediation. So large libraries, not only can they be done at very economical costs, but they can be done very quickly. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of pages a week. So it's definitely something that we like to talk to people, to organizations about. It's not as simple as, well, what does it cost to do this? Because we really want to make sure that we want to meet your expectations, and where we can exceed them, but this is technology, and we call it augmented document remediation for a reason. The technology is not perfect. And when the technology falls short, we want to assure you that we have a path to human remediation that we have integrated into the product. Or if you have a path of human remediation through a special needs office or through a special office at a college or whatever, we can pipeline it there. But one way or another, the user is not going to be left without accessibility to their document, but it is going to greatly and significantly reduce costs and time for everybody involved. So that's really the big thing. And then the other stuff is just what Steve showed. We have various packages that include consumer packages and enterprise packages. And we really believe that as Scribe matures, Scribe for Documents matures, we're going to see other things, augmented versions of document creation. So that's all from here.
All righty. Mike, what is it if somebody wants to do a really big library, say they've got 10,000 legacy documents and they want to have them all scribed, what's the process for doing that? How does that work?
Well, it depends on if they wanted us to do it or if they wanted to do it. If they wanted us to do it, they'd simply give us the documents, point us where they are. We point our cloud service at it, and just within a matter of probably about a day or so, day or two, we could have all of their documents in an accessible format that meets WCAG compliance. Now those aren't we spot check them and make sure that they're going, but everybody's mileage may vary. If we don't look at any of the data, if you have just 10,000 documents and blah, we give them, if you have them separated into different types, there's different things that we can do to make the documents a little bit more accessible in the way of knowing what they are, if these are invoices, for example, or if these are intake forms or what have you. But those are all different things that are beyond the scope of what we're doing here. But there is a process for doing large scale library conversions. And that's really good for when it comes to legacy stuff, legacy documents, because frankly, you got to have them. They should, as a blind person, I'd rather have access to 80% of something than 100% of nothing. And if a sighted person can see a microfiche, if a sighted person can see even a faded graphic, I should be able to see at least an 80 or 90 or 95 or 96% accurate rendition of that document if I so need it. And that's really where this technology shines. It's not perfect, far from it. Well, about 5 points from it. But hey, it is definitely something that will enhance the user experience for the consumer of your content, and will definitely cut costs if you are trying to make content accessible. And if we don't make the grade, again, there's always that human. And we do human remediation for as little as $7 a page, US.
Nice. So does anybody have questions about Scribe for Documents? I see a couple of hands raised, but I'm not sure if they're just holdovers from the last round there.
I have a question.
Yep, fire away.
So what's the accuracy of Scribe for meetings and Scribe, like both softwares, compared to a scanned document?
I think that that's kind of beyond the scope of this conversation. A scanned document has its own idiosyncrasies that it has to deal with. Scribe for meetings is actually probably a higher accuracy than Scribe for documents, simply because Scribe for documents is scanning documents, and Scribe for meetings is actually converting existing PowerPoint documents or presentations and scanning when graphics are there and there's no text. So it's not really a fair comparison for either one of the three. But like I said before, Scribe for documents is about 95%. If you wanted me to put something on Scribe for meetings, I'd say probably in the high 90s, 98, 99%. I don't know about what the accuracy would be of a document that's scanned with a scanner. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know that there would be one answer to that anyways, because there's so much variability from one document to another, and resolution, background colors,
Lighting,
yeah,
all kinds of
there's
stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of moving elements to that.
One other question. So if we use Scribe, right? Is it self-voiced, or do you need a screen reader for it to function?
It depends on the output you choose. If you choose a self-voiced output, you'll get self-voiced. If you choose just a straight text output, you'll need a screen reader.
But
Thank
the
you.
user interface itself for the process of remediating the documents, choosing your output format, etc., assumes that you already have whatever assistive technology you need to access the interface. It's not a self-voicing environment like OpenBook or Kurzweil, because frankly, we think that the days when that kind of thing is needed are over. That screen readers are widely available now.
Alrighty, Eric, you've got your hand up.
Thanks. What about documents with multiple languages in them?
Yeah, just same as Scribe for meetings. It'll support multiple languages.
So it'll just
We use the
just
same
detect.
language auto detection technology in both products. So
Eric, it's a trip when you take one of these documents, like one of these user manuals, right? That are like for an electronic thing or whatever, and they're all in these different languages, and Scribe for documents starts to read them because it uses all kinds of different voices and accents. And so it makes the French voice sound like French and the Spanish voice sound like a Spanish person. So it detects the language, and it marks up the HTML, and also does the Braille equivalents and all that kind of thing. So we do respect and support various languages.
Alrighty. Any more Scribe questions? Well, let's move on then.
And now it's the Geek Show.
Yes, now it's the Geek Show. So there's not a lot in the way of slides for this one. RIM is remote support or remote administration for or by the blind and visually impaired. I was getting slides set up and pondering how to demonstrate this when Mike came along and rescued me and said, you know what, Matt does an awesome presentation on this. So
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So Matt, you can take it away. Let me know if I need to give you any increased permissions or anything for what you need to do.
if you
but
could please just stop your current screen sharing.
I am going to stop my current screen sharing. There you go.
All right. So just give me a few seconds to get.
By the way, those of you that are enjoying the simulcast over there on the Scribe for Meetings site will notice that right now there's a sign up that says that there's no content being shown. And if you were listening with your headphones, you got a little piano thing, ding, that says that there's no slides. When Steve comes back and starts showing his slides again, and inevitably he will, there will be another sound, and you will be able to know that you can flip back into that window if you're somewhere else.
Well, then I need to keep my demo under half an hour so the bot doesn't get tired and leave the meeting, because if we leave it in this state for half an hour or more, then the bot will decide to leave until somebody brings it back in.
It gets bored.
Yeah.
You created a bot with an attention deficit disorder.
Oh, well, I mean,
we call it with an attitude.
I mean, it was an intentional feature, because sometimes I mean, if the meeting just keeps going and going and going, and I mean the bot, for better or worse, does take up resources, and we don't want it to keep running in an inactive state forever. But anyways, so Remote Incident Manager, or RIM, is the world's only fully accessible remote desktop product designed for both blind and sighted users on both ends of the connection. And now I'm going to show it to you in action. So I am sharing my VMware workstation window. I've got two virtual machines up and running. The one that I've got up right now is a Windows 10 VM, which is going to act as the RIM controller machine. This is the machine where I play the role of the technician doing a remote session. And then I've also got a Windows 11 VM where I will play the role of the target, the end user being helped. So, and I'm running the NVDA screen reader on the controller machine, and that will become relevant in a minute or two. So to bring up RIM, it's on the desktop as a shortcut, of course, but we also have a hotkey which will come up a few times in the course of our RIM session, and that is Windows Shift Backspace. So I'm going to press that key now. Okay, hang on. Just oh, that's why I didn't grab keyboard input in my VM. Let's try that again. Oh, let's, okay.
Remote incident.
There we go. And if I tab,
Main landmark start voice conversation
or
check.
shift tab rather.
Keyword, edit blank.
So to start, there are a few ways to start a RIM session, and we'll talk about the other ways later. But the easiest way to start a session with just a random end user that needs help is using a keyword. And the way this works is I, as the controller, will choose a keyword and I'll enter it. And then I'll give that keyword to the target user, who will enter the same keyword. And once both sides enter the same keyword, they will be connected up and the session will begin. You can use any keyword you want. Could be as simple as one letter, as long as nobody else happens to be using that same letter to start a session at the same time. The keyword is only reserved for as long as it takes to get the session started. And then that same keyword can be reused by other people for different sessions. We think that this concept of using a keyword is much more intuitive, especially for less technically proficient end users, than having something like a random numeric or alphanumeric code, such as you would find in TeamViewer. So I'm just going to use my own name, Matt, as the keyword.
M-A-T-T.
And I happened to capitalize the M when I was entering the keyword on the controller side, but keywords are not case sensitive. So now I'll press enter.
Sending request, please wait. Waiting for the other user to enter the keyword. Remote Incident Manager.
Now I will flip over to my other VM. And it looks like my other VM went into suspend. Because wait. Or did I just bring up my Windows 7?
It did say something about Windows 7 when you first popped it on.
Okay. Right. Okay. That's the wrong VM. Hang on, guys. There's my Windows 11 VM. Okay. And now, this time I'll bring up RIM, and this VM is not running a screen reader, and I'll explain why in a minute or two. So I'll just narrate what's going on. This time I'll bring up RIM from the desktop shortcut, the way more or less that a sighted end user would probably do. And I'll enter the same keyword, this time lowercase, and press enter.
Desktop list. Remote session. Remote session. No screen reader is running on the remote machine.
And now I'll flip back over to my controller VM, and we are up and running. And as you heard, it said that no screen reader was running on the target machine. So in my role as the controller, I'm doing this as if I were a blind technician. And as anyone who has worked in remote technical support or attempted to will probably already be aware, if you are connecting to, if you're blind or low vision and you need a screen reader and you're connecting to a sighted end user who doesn't have a screen reader running on their machine, well, the best you can do probably with any other product is start up narrator on their machine. And that, of course, would draw attention to the fact that you're blind or low vision, and it would just be a distraction from getting the user's problem solved. So what we offer as part of RIM is what we call the remote accessibility module, which works in conjunction with the NVDA screen reader on the controller's machine to provide access to the remote target machine without the target machine having to run a screen reader. So I'm going to show that in action now. And to do that, I'm going to bring up the RIM session menu. And to do that, I press, again, our all-purpose hotkey, Windows Shift Backspace.
Menu selected, sub-menu.
And now I can start arrowing through this menu.
Minimize session M1 of 10.
And I'll discuss more of these menu options later. For now, I'll just arrow down a few more times.
Flip session F2 of 10. Start voice conversation V3 of 10. Start remote accessibility of 4 of 10.
There we go. And you can, there is a hotkey for that within the menu. Once you open the menu, you can just use A to choose that option. So I'll press enter now.
Remote session document. No screen, desktop list. Remote incident manager checkbox, check 2 of 2.
And there we go. We're getting speech output. We're getting access to the target machine with speech, but the target user is not hearing anything. And the way you know that the target user is not hearing anything is, remember, both roles are being played by VMs on my machine, and you are not getting double speech. So I can open the start menu.
Start window, search box, edit blank. Pinned list, Microsoft Edge 1 of 25.
And this is the Windows 11 start menu. And I'll just close it.
Desktop list, remote incident manager checkbox, check 2 of 2.
Now, let's look at some more of these menu options that I glossed over. So again, Windows Shift Backspace.
Menu selected, sub-menu.
And I'll start arrowing.
Minimize session M1 of 9.
So minimize session, this is what the controller would use if they want to switch back to controlling their own machine temporarily. And one of the things you can do here is you can copy and paste not only text, but also files between machines. And I'm going to be just a little bit adventurous and demo that now. So I'll minimize the session.
Taskbar.
And it put me on the taskbar on my controller machine. And I'll go to
Desktop
the
list.
desktop.
Recycle bin checkbox
And
not
I'll
selected.
just choose a file here.
RIM March 1st, 12 setup checkbox check.
This is an older RIM installer that I had lying around. So I pressed Control C because I use this VM to do RIM testing quite a lot. So I'll copy the file to the clipboard with Control C. Now I can use Windows Shift Backspace again to return to the session in progress.
Desktop. Remote session document. Remote accessibility is active.
And RIM reminded us that the remote accessibility module is active on the target machine. One thing I should mention is that RIM also works with any other screen reader that may be running on the target machine. So if the target user is already running JAWS or NVDA or Narrator or System Access, then RIM will recognize that screen reader is running, and any audio from the target machine, screen reader or otherwise, will come across in full high quality stereo. That is a little bit awkward to demonstrate here because I'm playing both roles. But anyway, now I'm going to make sure that I'm still on the desktop.
Program Manager.
And let's paste that file.
Copying. Dialog copying RIM March 1st, 12 setup.exe to C. Users Mac OneDrive desktop name from.
Oh, it's
to,
going straight into my
time remain-
OneDrive, is it? Okay, so we don't actually need to let that go all the way
unavailable.
through. So I just hit cancel and
Desktop list.
okay.
Remote incident manager checkbox check
I
2.
was getting a little nervous there that thought it was gonna hang. So I didn't let it go all the way through, but that just goes to show you that file transfer does work, and it's as simple as the copy and paste that you would already be used to doing in Windows File Explorer. So let's start going through this menu again.
Menu selected submenu.
I pressed Windows Shift Backspace again.
Minimize session M1 of 9.
There is a hotkey for that you can press anytime during the session. Windows, I think it's Windows Shift M. It's in the manual. Don't quote me on that specific keystroke, but there is a hotkey for that function. So let's keep going.
Flip session F2 of 9.
Flip session. This is a really, we think, unique feature of RIM. And what it does basically is it temporarily switches the controller and target roles. So if I was connected to, if I started a session on Mike's machine, and then I, as the controller, went in and flipped the session, then Mike would temporarily be connected to my machine, and he could start remotely using whatever software I have on my machine. And if you're a trainer and you want to demo some software that the end user doesn't have installed on their machine, then you can just flip the session around and let them take temporary control of your machine. And you, as the person who initiated the session, always have ultimate control. So you can flip the session back or disconnect the user at any time. And by the way, in a regular non-flipped session, the end user can also forcibly disconnect the technician. So I'm not going to demo flipping right now because again, since I'm playing both roles, it would get kind of hard to follow what's going on. but that is an overview of what flipping the session can do.
Start voice conversation v3 of 9.
And this lets you start a voice conversation between the two users, and it's high quality. It's got echo cancellation and basically the other stuff that you would expect from a modern voice voice chat feature. So if you want to if you want to talk to the end user through your computers during the session, then you can do that.
Request unattended access U4 of 9.
So unattended access is a really powerful feature of RIM. It allows you with the end user's permission to set up to register a machine with your RIM account so that you can connect to that machine at any time without requiring the end user to be involved with the session. So if you've got machines that you need to do regular maintenance on, or if you have some users who are who have issues even with the process of starting a keyword session, then you can set up those machines for unattended access. And there's also another feature that makes it even easier to set up unattended access, which is that any RIM subscriber can create what we call a target installer, which is a version of the RIM installer that is pre-configured to register any machines that it is installed on to your RIM account. Now, whenever that installer is run, it will show the user a confirmation dialog saying something like, this installer will set up this machine so that Matt Campbell can access it without your permission, or without you needing to give permission at the time of the session. Do you want to do this? And so because these installers also expire. So we think that those measures are effective at preventing a possible abuse of this unattended target installer feature. Now, for an enterprise RIM subscription, and I'm sure Mike will talk more about pricing options later, it is possible to create target installers that can run in silent mode for mass deployment to a whole network of machines. So that is unattended access in a nutshell. Let me keep going.
Reboot and reconnect R5 of 9.
If you're doing something like installing some software, or possibly uninstalling and reinstalling software, including assistive technology products, and you need to reboot the target machine as part of the process, but you're not done yet, then RIM can automatically reconnect the session when the machine comes back. And you can either do a reboot and reconnect through this option here, or you can, or if the machine was rebooted by some other piece of software, such as an installer that you just ran, then RIM will detect that and start the process of reconnecting.
Send Control plus Alt plus Delete 6 of 9.
Here are a couple of options. These next couple of options are for special keystrokes that if you were to just press them, they would have they would be captured by Windows on your local machine instead of the target machine. So Control Alt Delete is of course the most famous one of these.
Lock the target machine L7 of 9.
Windows plus L to lock the machine so that someone has to enter a password or PIN or use a fingerprint reader or something to log back in is the other key. If you were to just press Windows L, then it would happen on your local machine. And there's no way that we could stop that from happening. So we offer these menu options instead.
Connection details C8 of 9.
So I'm going to actually show you this option in action.
Remote session document. Connection details. Connection details. Main landmark heading level 1 connection details.
This is a web page that shows you various technical details about the connection. So
Heading level 2 controller. Table with 8 rows and 2 columns. Row 1 column 1 ping round trip time. Column 2 14 milliseconds.
14 milliseconds is actually a bit higher than I would have expected for 2 VMs on my same machine. But we generally, I mean, our target ping time is 100 milliseconds or less. And this is a good opportunity for me to talk a little bit about how the RIM connection works under the hood. And we normally, in about at least 75% of cases, are able to do a direct peer-to-peer connection between the controller and target machines. So that means that the connection is direct, or at least as direct as internet routing will allow. It doesn't have to go out to a central server and back to relay the data. And so if Steve is in British Columbia and he's helping someone else that's also in British Columbia, then it doesn't have to go all the way to the Eastern United States and back. In the cases where a peer-to-peer connection is not possible, then we have a network of relays around the world, including in Canada, and RIM will use the closest relay, and that just automatically happens. You don't have to worry about that. Let's
Row 2 column 1 data received.
let me just skim this table a bit.
Row 3 data sent. Row 4 network type. Row 5 local address. Row 6 local transport type.
And let's I'm pretty sure this connection here is peer-to-peer, but let's just double check on that.
Column 2 direct peer-to-peer. Row 7 column 1 remote address. Row 8 remote transport type. Column 2 direct peer-to-peer.
So the connection is direct peer-to-peer in both directions. No real surprise there, since again it's 2 VMs on my laptop. Let me just skim this page a little more.
Target heading level 2.
So
Table with 7 rows and 2 columns. Row 1 column 1 data received.
So this shows you the same, most of the same stats, but as seen by the target side of the connection. So one of the items I glossed over there was network type, and that is certainly Ethernet on both ends, because it's VMs with virtual Ethernet interfaces. But if you wanted to know whether the target machine was on Ethernet or Wi-Fi, you could see that. And finally,
Machine info heading level 3.
here is some information about the target machine.
Table with 5 rows and 2 columns. Row 1 column 1 Windows version. Column 2 10.0.222621.
Windows 11 still uses version numbers of 10.x internally.
Row 2 column 1 total RAM. Column 2 4 GB. Row 3 column 1 free RAM. Column 2 2 GB.
Okay, so I've got 2 gigs of RAM free on that VM. We also have
Running processes heading level 4.
And for each process that's running on the target machine, we show you the process ID and the full path to the executable. And finally,
Installed packages heading level 4.
which is basically the list that you would find in your programs and features control panel. So that is the connection details page, and that gives
Remote
you
session.
a lot of useful information that you can use to troubleshoot problems with the connection or the target machine. And so the last option in the menu is, of
Menu
course,
selected. Disconnect session D9 of 9.
now, Steve or Mike, is there anything else that you guys think that I should show before we end this demo?
No, sir, I think you nailed it.
All
As
right,
usual, of course.
so I will disconnect the session,
Desktop list.
and the target user, by the way, gets a pop-up notification when the session starts or ends. And if the target user is running a screen reader, then that notification will be spoken and or shown on their Braille display as any other notification would be. So that is my demo of RIM.
And as they say, where my geeks at? Where my geeks at? I love that.
Any questions?
Eric, I see your hand up.
Oh, that's funny. I thought I dropped it. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify the configuration that would be used by me personally, pretty much exclusively, would be screen reader on the controller machine and no screen reader on the target machine. So for that to work, I would have to have the RIM installed on both the controller and the target machine, and I would have to be using NVDA in order to get speech access from the target machine. Is that right?
Bingo. You
That's
got it.
it.
You were
Okay.
paying attention.
Yeah, just want to make sure. Thanks.
Awesome. I wanted to say, I mean, but we're all being, geeky, joking around. For those of you that didn't get this, all of this, because Matt did purposefully get real technical. The whole idea here is when it comes down to money and mobility, right? And they both mean the same thing. If you've got an AT specialist on one side of the state or one side of the country that needs to work with someone on the other side, it's a hell of a lot easier to go to your machine and connect to their machine in an accessible way and fix the problem than have them travel by plane, train, or automobile to get to where they need to go. I've literally talked to trainers that have traveled 6 hours just to reset a screen reader because unfortunately they're using JAWS Tandem. And of course, if JAWS is down, so is Tandem. And there are no other accessible scenarios, no other accessible pieces of software out there. And a lot of the AT folks tend to be visually impaired. So that's one. The other one is, let us not underestimate the power of the flip. When Matt was talking about flipping, that is one of the most exciting features, simply because as an AT trainer, you can sit in your office, you can literally evaluate a person 10 miles away, hundreds of miles away, in the comfort of their own home, at a family member's home. You can work with them. You can show them what it's like if they're recently visually impaired. It's going to be a lot less of a shock for them if they're using the computer that they've always used and you're showing them. Now, we can add these things to your computer that can make your computer work like this. And this is what it feels like in your place. So this is an amazing solution for remote support. And one thing that we haven't mentioned up to now is we are adding Mac support. So by the end of the first quarter of this year or so, we will be releasing Mac support at very minimum into beta. And that will be Mac to Mac, Mac to Windows, Windows to Mac, whatever your little heart desires, you can support it. And it's all included in the package pricing for RIM. So we don't have any different, oh, you're just Mac only or whatever. So I really do believe that this is a solution that is a great standalone solution. It really is. But now let's say you've got a solution that your huge organization has already adopted. Let's say you have a custom support solution that you're using for your customers, but you need remote accessibility. get in contact. We can definitely talk about licensing this technology for inclusion in your own in your own solutions. In fact, I put out a challenge, and that is that TeamViewer or any company like it could license this technology from us and literally overnight make billions of computers accessible. We're the only ones on the planet that do it, and we really want to share it with as many people that want to include it in their technology and be as inclusive as they can be. Any questions? I wonder if I put everybody to sleep, Steve.
Well, I noticed Eric still got his hand up, so I don't know.
Maybe he fell asleep with his hand up.
I keep banging the lower button, but it keeps on. But anyway, let's get it into quick assist.
Yeah, well, hey, Microsoft knows we exist. The beauty of this though is that you can, we have, if you're a computer manufacturer, we have, for example, PCs for the blind, computers for the blind over here in the States. They're loading it onto every machine that they build. And that's, over 1,800 machines this year. And all they got to do is just, if they're doing attended, they just log on with the user's permission. It says, hey, support wants to connect to your computer. You want to let them? Or if they want to do the keyword session. If you have folks that are very physically challenged with dexterity or whatever, you can do full access and all over encrypted, very secure lines. We have a VPAT available. We have security documentation available. Please turn us on to your IT departments and make sure that they look at this. We're going to separate out Matt's demo as a separate piece. Right on Steve's website, you've got all kinds of information. And whether you contact Steve or contact us, the sale's going to Steve either way. So it's not that kind of party here. We just want to make sure that we're able to help you do what you need to do to make your workplace, your school, whatever it is, more accessible to those that you need to give them technical support and training. And whether it's us on our Pneuma website or Steve's website, we definitely want to hear from you with any questions or any suggestions. We're building this thing, and it takes a village to build software. It doesn't just happen by itself.
All righty. Any more questions? All right. Well, for you West Coasters, you go have lunch, and for you East Coasters,
Kevin raised his hand.
Oh, Kevin. Yep. Fire away, Kevin.
I just wanted to say, hey, great job, guys. I think that's great. I think it's fantastic, the work you're doing. Keep it up. And, there's always room for improvement, but like Eric and my colleague Eric and I will talk about it later, I'm sure, and we'll probably render something off to our boss. I'm sure he probably wants to know more about it. But exactly.
And then, I remember that when we went to buy those key rings for Jocelyn,
geek,
we
your
got them
needs
at,
for
got them at
geek
Michael's.
satisfaction of a
Because
presentation.
there's only
met.
I want like a pretty,
Sorry,
like a pretty
Eric,
big
we're getting
size to
some
feed through the,
stuff through you there.
right?
I'm going to mute you, Eric.
Yeah, no, it's not me. It's somebody else that mute me. Yeah. Anyways, there's some feedback there, but no, thanks a lot, guys. It's very informative. I love a lot of it. I think it's great, and whatever we can do to make things accessible for everybody, right? It's whether it be the dexterity, cognitive, vision, hearing, whatever we can do, right? I think it's great. Keep up the great work, guys. That's all I wanted to say. That's why I raised my hand. So
thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot for your presentation. Very informative. I loved it.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming, and I will be doing a follow-up email with a coupon code for you for anybody who initiates a enterprise purchase. And yeah,
You're giving away that money again, Steve.
I'm giving away the money.
Jeez. All right, guys. Well, we hope to see you in subsequent meetings, and we hope we've answered all your questions.
All right, everybody have a terrific afternoon.
Elbow has left the meeting alert. Participants, 10.